I have a lovely kettle as well that does it to the right temperature. So that
was one thing that just seems to work for you.
Is that consistency and authenticity that is probably the streak that's run through from day one.
Sent out one of my emails today, and it literally simply put, figure out what you enjoy. When we see accounts, we hear accountants and bookkeepers that are too busy, they are running 16 different softwares. They don't have control in their business because they're not saying no enough at the start of the conversation.
In a world where we've become so much more decentralized and so much more kind of reliant on the Amazons of this world, I want my service providers to really be someone that I can connect with on understand my problem and understand my challenges. Right?
Hi, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I have the amazing Mr. Phil Hobden with me. Phil, do you want to give an intro to yourself?
No. Yeah, of course. So my name is Phil Hobden. I am currently the UK product lead for Silverfin. So Silverfin are a compliance software, Belgium-based company, but we launched into the UK about 7 or 8 years ago and now work with 30 of the top 100 and several outside of that. Outside of my time at Silverfin, I've been working with accountants and technology for around 10 years now, a variety of different businesses. I've worn a few T-shirts in my time, as the saying goes in this space. But I've worked everything from compliance to forecasting, reporting, and finance software. Before that, my background is predominantly sales leadership within some different businesses. I ran my own company for a while back in the day in film and media, which was, a hard pivot from that into banking. And generally, I'd like to talk about all things kind of sales and marketing and accountancy. So I think I've found myself in the right place today.
Yeah, I think so. I think, what you said there, you've got the credentials. You've been, I think I first met you when you were at Future. You were head of sales at Future, I think, when we first met.
Yeah.
Which seems like a lifetime ago, right? That was a...
It's amazing, right? Like in real terms, it wasn't actually that long ago, right? It's probably 9 years we met, something like that, which, in the grand scheme of things, I know I don't look it, but I'm pushing my 48th birthday this year. So 9 years to me is a relatively short space of time, but like things move so quickly in this space. Of course, Futurely went on to, take Series A funding and then eventually sell to Sage and, now a Sage business. It's, one thing I've learned in my time in this industry is things move pretty quick and probably quicker than most other industries.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And I think that leads me into the real kind of first technical question that I have for you. You've been in this space for 10 years and you've done sales for a large portion of that time. And I think, you've got a personal brand. You've also marketed yourself. What's the one thing that's remained a good strategy or tactic, no matter kind of the year, whether it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago? What's the one thing that just seems to work for you?
It's a really simple one, right? And it's the first thing they say about sales with anyone. It's authenticity. Be you. If you're going to post something that that you would post about. If you're going to talk about something on a stage, talk about something that you would talk about. Be you and be authentically you, and that way people tend to gravitate a little bit more towards you. That's how you build your audience. It doesn't necessarily get immediate results, right? Like people have to get to know you and kind of understand you, but it leads to long-term results. And now I've got clients that I've worked with at 3 different businesses, sometimes by choice and sometimes by coincidence, that instantly know me, that are very happy that I'm there, kind of welcome me back in. And like that first, couple of stages of the sales cycle, the get to know them, the understand them, the personal connection, all that's done, right? All that was done 5 years ago. So now I can just walk in and go, right, what do you need from me and how can I help? And so I guess the shorter version of that is I always look at my career as a long game, not a short game. So, what I do today will pay off tomorrow, the day after, or the year after that, but it will always pay off. Is that consistency and authenticity that is probably the streak that's run through from day one.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is I think pretty much everybody that I've had on this podcast has said a similar sort of thing. And last week, Jonathan Gordon's episode went out, and he said the same thing, right? He was like, post the stuff that you actually enjoy talking about. And I sent out one of my emails today, and it literally simply put, figure out what you enjoy. And Like, if rather than trying to go and emulate people or be something you're not, find out what you enjoy, what you're good at, and then where your clients are. I think that authenticity rings true really well. Where do you think in that do you think accountants go wrong?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because accountants are authentic in themselves, right? They are what they are. They are an accountant. They are qualified. They are educated. They are inherently always the smartest person in the room. And certainly when I'm in a room with an accountant, they're always the smartest person in the room. I think where they maybe could work on is the elevating that and connecting the human to the person. And I think it's that the human side of authenticity, I think you lose sometimes, which is why Francesca Trucarico, Rachel Harris, Stuart Hurst, as some examples of people, obviously not Francesca Trucarico now, name change, but it took me years to learn how to say her name, so I'm now going to just say it one last time. But like, like these people have done such an amazing job in connecting the authentic human with the authentic accountant. So therefore, I, as someone that's looking for someone as an accountant to support my business, I want to have someone I can connect with on a personal level. I want to have someone that I can understand and understands me. So, if I look online and go, yeah, clearly you've been working as an accountant for 25 years, but there's no human connection with you. But here's a guy that's been working as an accountant for 5 years, but I do connect with, and I do have that kind of, I understand them and where they're coming from. Potentially, I'm more likely to go into that direction because I favor that human connection. That's not true for everyone, right? Like some people want the technical expertise and everything that comes with it. And they'll go, look, I don't care if my accountant understands that, you play roller derby and even knows what roller derby is. Actually, I care that like they can just do my accounts and save me money. I just want a bit of that human connection. So I think going back to your original point, I think that's potentially some of the gap that I see is connecting the authentic accountant with the authentic human to be the authentic person that my business needs.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone, I mean, Seth Godin says it really well, doesn't he? He says you have to build your own tribe. And
yeah,
the only way you're going to do that is let people connect with who you are. I do think one of the biggest problems is a lot of people ride the authenticity wave, start pushing stuff out, and just think that things are going to come to them. And that's one of the biggest things, right? It's like you might have nailed your ideal client profile, you might be nailing your content, but you do have to actually go out and go after these people. It's not always just going to come flowing in. And if you do wait for that, you're waiting 6 months, if not more, to get to that point. What are some of the things that you've done where you've reached out to accountancy's clients that has really moved the needle?
I've asked for the business. And it's, as someone that's coached people for years, right? Like I listen to so many technically brilliant sales calls where they walk them through the wonderful journey, brilliant well, no, actually not always brilliant qualifying, but like understanding the problem and relating the product to the problem, and then they just go, okay, cool, so yeah, we'll catch up in a couple of months then, and the person on the other end, accountant or tech or whoever, goes, okay, yeah, and just like all that great work you've done just goes off a cliff, right? Like I remember coaching someone on a live call once. Hate doing live call coaching, really uncomfortable for everyone involved, right? But I covered the mic and I was like, ask for the business, keeping it clean. And the guy I was coaching was like, and he was like, oh, so is this something you'd like to go ahead with? And the accountant was like, yeah, actually, yeah, definitely, yeah, we're really interested in this. And it was like, and they came off the call, and I was like, what was the one thing you learned from that? And he was like, well, you've got to sometimes ask for the bit, and you have. And by the way, asking for the business isn't always asking for the sale. Sometimes it's asking for the next step and confirming it in the diary, or it's setting the next landmark, or it's setting, there are stages to winning a deal that's more than sometimes just, do you want to go ahead? Do you want to go ahead is a great question, though, because if the answer is yes, Brilliant. If the answer's no, okay, so what's stopping you from going ahead right now? What more do I need to show you to put you in a place where you can say yes? And then you understand the objectives, and then you can either counter those objectives or you can set the next point in the roadmap for that. And quite often in the accountancy firm, it's I don't have the sole buying power. And by the way, no matter how well you qualify, that tends to only ever come up when you ask for the business. It's a weird thing. Like, you the person I need to make? Yes, 100%. Brilliant. Do you want to close? Oh no, I need to get some other partners involved. Okay, that's fine. But that's actually okay, by the way. But now I understand that. So, okay, when are they available? And let's get that date in the diary to book that meeting with them. So I think sometimes we forget to ask for the business. I think sometimes we're almost too British about stuff. Guess what? American accountants, American salespeople, they ask for the business almost before the call started, right? Like that's how bold that culture is, because it's a different culture. In the UK, we're far more kind of polite, and I think that comes a lot into. And then when you're not a natural salesperson, that becomes an even bigger blocker, because we don't like being told no. It's inherently like, we didn't like to be last picked at school. We didn't like to get turned down when we asked the boy girl person for a date. I did a really interesting experiment years ago when I worked in banking. I was coaching a group of people. I was trying to show them how people say no instinctively. We're instinctively trained to say no. So I went out on the street. I took £5, my own hard-earned money, stood in the street, and when people walked past, I was like, £5? Someone walked past. Like, £5? Someone walked past. It took 11 people before someone stopped and went, wow. Sorry? Do you want £5? I said, well, what for? I said, no, you could just have it. Just take the £5. Like, really? You want me to take the £5? Yeah, take the £5. And they took the £5. Said, what do you need from me now? I said, nothing. Thanks. See you later. Lovely to meet you. And they walked off looking incredibly confused. I didn't get a receipt. I should have got a receipt for that. I couldn't claim it back. I always remember that. But people are inherently, even when you're waving actual money in their faces, their natural instinct is to say no. So if you're not then being more proactive in getting that decision, that is always going to be the fundamental blocker. And then you flick it back to the beginning, and if you don't understand the problem, then actually the solution you show them. But that's a kind of different part of the question. But ultimately, you've got to ask for the business.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, I would say, like that's like the headline, and the bit that sits underneath that, like you said earlier, is you've got to ask for the next step, because a lot of people will never ask for that next step. If somebody comes through to my landing page, the first thing I do, give me your email. I want your email. They get an email from me. At the base of that email, it will say, "P.S. Can we have a chat?" We'll have a chat, and then it'll be like, "Okay, cool. I've qualified you. I've understood your problem. I know I can help you right now, or maybe I need to think about it." And then I'm going to come back, and it's constantly asking for those next steps. And some of the clients I work with, one of the clients I work with, she's been brilliant in her approach. Big shout out to Sean. Hopefully she's watching. She sent out a bunch of letters to business owners. And then this week, bear in mind, this is something she's never done in her life. And she's now had the confidence to send letters out to all these people and then call all of them up and be like, "Hey, like, I sent you this letter. I want to have a coffee with you. What do you think?" Which is it's because I think there's so many like tactics, strategies, you could say. People love saying no, right? So one of the things I always used to do is go, "Is there any reason why we can't move forward?" No, there's not. It's so much easier for us to say that. And actually, even if you nail all these tactics and stuff, move all of that aside and everything is crap, but you ask for the business, you're still in a chance to win. You might get more no's than yeses because you haven't done the other stuff amazingly well. But asking for that next step is so crucial.
Yeah, it is. And it's everyone gets so like, the amount of salespeople I talk through, and they're like, "What methodology do you use?" I'm like, I use the ask them for the business methodology, right? Like, I understand their problem. I ask them questions. I understand their problem. I relate the solution I have to that, because clearly in fact, breaking that down at the very start of the conversation, right? If someone jumps on a call with me, the first thing I always ask them is this: clearly you have taken time out of your busy day, your busy schedule for this half an hour. What was it that you wanted to, what was it that attracted you to this? And what are the problems that you're trying to solve with this? So
Mm,
let's be really clear up front, and you tell me what you want to get out of this and what were your expectations. And sometimes they go, oh, we want to be able to do, for example, with Silverfin, say, you could turn around and someone say, oh, we want to do good bookkeeping with this. Okay, you've probably misunderstood the tool. That's not what we do. So actually, if that's a problem you're looking to solve and you're not beyond that at the moment, we're probably too early in that conversation for us. But let me introduce you to someone at Free Agent or someone at Xerox or wherever that can solve that problem for you, right? So that can actually solve everyone's time. And by the way, if you qualify someone out at the beginning, they're more likely to come back to you down the road when they are looking to solve that problem, because they go, actually, that Phil didn't waste my time. He didn't waste trying to sell me something that I didn't need at a time I didn't
mm,
need it. He actually understood that it was the wrong time for that conversation. I have no issue when I'm talking to someone saying, clearly this is not the right time for you, right? So let's keep in touch. And in 6 months' time, let's pick it up. Majority of those, they come back to me 3 to 4 months later and say, right, we're ready to pick it up because you
mm,
dealt with them right at the beginning. So that whole asking for the business and the next steps starts from that beginning of really understanding what they want to get out of it, why they're talking to you, what the problem they're trying to solve is, and then that conversation from there. And going back to that beginning question you asked, what is it about me that's been consistent through that time? It's that level of authenticity, that ability to turn people down and say, not right now, or not for you, or not at this moment, in the same way that they would do the same to me if it was right. I'm acutely aware of the industry and I've been in it for long enough that I can talk to someone pretty quickly, understand if we're at the right point where this problem is the one they're trying to solve.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, you saying no, that's one of the biggest things. I actually look to like, especially now with the business that I run, I look to disqualify people because the problem is if that person's not a right fit for me, or I'm trying to like kind of cram them into working with me, they're probably not going to get a great experience and they're not going to get everything out. So if I'm saying no, like this isn't going to work, then it's actually because they need to do more on their end, or maybe it's just not a fit, and it's actually ring fencing my own services. And that's one of the biggest things for accountants, right? Is like a commodity is something that is limitless, that is endless. And a lot of accountants want to take on as much business as they can, hire more people, get much business, and essentially they have a commodity. And that means when we see accountants, we hear accountants and bookkeepers that are too busy, they are running 16 different softwares. They don't have control in their business because they're not saying no enough at the start of the conversation.
Yeah, I think the power of no, right? No is the most powerful word out there. And it's not something that's used enough. And again, it's a cultural thing to a point. We're British, we're polite, we don't like to say no to things. We've all done it. We've all gone to the in-laws party that we'd rather have said no and sat at home and watched the football or something else. We've all done that kind of thing, right? Like, but when time is limited, and by the way, time is limited in every business, right? Your time is limited in every business. I work for Silverfin. I have an amount of hours that is expected of me to do, and so that's my contracted hours. I do X over that, in general, because you tend to do more, and and then outside of that, I've got my family time and my personal commitments and sport and running and other stuff that I do. I'm limited by 24 hours. How I cut that 24 hours is completely up to me, but there's always something's always got to give along that road. So it's working where that kind of give is, and that's a really important thing. Say no to get that right balance. One of the biggest challenges that a lot of accountancy firms I've dealt with over the years is the bottom 10% of clients that take up 30 to 40% of time. The 80-20 rule,
Mm,
right? 20% of your clients will take up 80% of your time. And unfortunately, 10% of that 20% are usually the ones that pay the least, ask the most, cause the most problems. I love it when an accountant says to me, we're offboarding clients, because right now it's not, they're not the right value clients for us. That's great. There are places out there you can go and get accountancy for £35 a month, right? Absolutely, you can do that. If price is your challenge, and if that's all you want is something cheaper, or you want more for that. If you're an accountant and you're dealing with too many of those clients, or a firm owner and you have too many of those clients, the value in your business is so much less than what it could be, because you could be exchanging those clients for clients that are higher value, that you could do more quality services with, that aren't like the guy that turns up with a shoebox full of receipts and goes, and you're like, brilliant. And I was talking to a firm today, clearly I won't name any names, but they have a lot of low value clients that turn up with a box of receipts that they don't charge anywhere near enough money for, and their tech in the firm isn't anywhere near as evolved as it could be to deal with those challenges. So and they don't charge for bookkeeping, but yet they do the bookkeeping. And you're like, okay, compliance is my side of compliance is not your challenge right now. You have a much bigger challenge than that, because we can automate and we can improve everything. We can sort the data out and we can standardize it, and we can make doing all your working papers and accounts production really, really simple for your business clients. But actually, if most of your clients are like that, the benefit is here before it's here.
Yeah, and setting that expectation as well builds trust, which is then 3-4 months later, those clients come back to you and they go, oh, right, I'm happier to pay for these extra services. Or they might not come back to you, but you filled that space either with family time or a better client, or now you do your marketing there. So I think, we kind of covered like a lot of the sales element, and actually there's like some things that I always say accountants are great at converting new clients. That's not really their problem. Their problem is the step before that, is going from stranger to lead to discovery call. What things have you done that's worked in that top end of the funnel, getting people just engaged initially?
So look, I actually wrote an article around this recently that will be going out next month on Elite Business, actually talking about business development for accountants, right? Like, what can you do more and how can you grow your business better? And some of the points that I was talking about on that was around the idea of what can you do to do things differently. So like free consultations is a great way. So you do the top of the funnel piece. So you could do technical webinars, or position yourself locally as a, I saw one accountant that was writing articles for the local newspaper around what was going on in the economy and stuff that week, that month. That was great, right? That's a great top of funnel piece, because that's taking your expertise as an accountant, something you do really well. You're putting it in a completely anonymized place. Like, you don't have to physically interact with anyone. You're just writing something that goes into a newspaper or onto a website. But then people go, that's the expert that I need. I'm going to then go and speak to them. And the question was, well, what do you do next? And for me, it was like, well, have a limited number of free half-an-hour consultations each week. And in that half-an-hour consultation, just ask the client, what are you looking for from what same thing I asked earlier, right? What are you not getting from your current accountant? What are you looking for? What's the key reason for changing? And what's your expectations? And if after that half an hour you've got that alignment and you come out of that and go, yeah, I can work with you, you can work with me, win-win. But both of you will find out in that half an hour session. And yeah, half an hour is half an hour, right? That could be £100, £200 of chargeable time. But equally, if you take that client on and they're a complete nightmare, you've probably saved yourself hours and hours and hours, right? So that's just kind of like a top of funnel to kind of conversion to kind of client thing, right? Is that position yourself as an expert. So I think if you're an accountant looking to drive in business, go online or go look in your local area at places where you can position your expertise at a local level. So most towns have big national firms, right? Like, or near us, Brighton's near me. You've got loads of bigger national firms or kind of chain firms. do they understand, or do they position themselves as understanding the challenge of the local town or the local region or local area? And that's a, that's a different challenge. So that's probably one thing I would do. Did that answer part of the question? I might have waffled on a little bit on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think establishing yourself as an expert is one of the first steps. And yeah, going to events where you can talk about what you do, because I think as well, accountancy is one of those, right? That like, unless you're doing it and you know exactly what you're talking about, most people don't know what they're talking about when it comes to accounts. So it's a really it's an area that people really need help with. So yeah, you could tomorrow, or you could watch this episode and go, I'm going to do that, and literally Google networking events near me, go on Eventbrite, look at stuff near you, look at other events that are being held, ask if you can be a speaker, reach out to, maybe you love helping bridal businesses in Yorkshire, reach out to these bridal businesses, understand where like other industry magazines, reach out to them and say, hey, can I guest blog for you? Like, this is a big issue. Because this is the thing that I think a lot of people forget. All of these industry magazines have to produce content, and they want good content because they want more readers. The better reader profile they have, the more money they can make. So if you can say, hey, look, I'm going to give you some world-class content that your competitors aren't going to have, they're going to listen to you, which is a great first step.
Yeah, it is. And I get asked a lot, like, why do you do free writing for this blog or this digital magazine? I'm like, well, because I can going back to that authenticity and the thing we said at the beginning, you position yourself as an authentic person with expertise in this space. I agreed 2 weeks, no, it was a week before COVID lockdown happened, to go and do a live event in London that everyone was running away from, and do a keynote, because like the people that were doing it pulled out. So like Carl Reeder actually recommended me, and I went with I think it was 3 days notice, maybe slightly less, a week before COVID lockdown, to write a presentation and deliver it to a room of 10 people. There's probably a few more than that. Online, there was like thousands. And people are like, what? Why did you do that? I said, well, because out of that has become award judging, has become podcasts, has become interviews, expert pieces in magazines and other bits and pieces, right? Like, what that one free piece of my time gave me is probably 5 years worth of stuff I'm still trading off today, and that then leads to other opportunities, and so on, right? So I've never been afraid to give away some of my time for free if there's a big picture attached, and if it's to do with a strategy. So anything I do will be part of a wider strategy. If I want to kind of position myself in that area a bit more, so therefore I'm going to do some writing in that area, therefore I'm going to, and so on, right? So you're absolutely right. It's like positioning yourself. And by the way, just the other thing to remember, I'm jumping around a bit, but the other thing to remember is, if you have a passion for bridal businesses, you can work with bridal businesses anywhere in the UK. Like, you don't have to, the days of being a local accountant, having a local accountant, being a local expert is great. But if you want to go the other way, niche, there is nothing stopping you from niching now, like on a national and, blimey, almost international level. One of my favorite customers at Futurely was a Barbadian accountant that had clients in the UK. I mean, that's insane. She's based in Barbados. She'll like work UK hours like once or twice a week, and she had UK clients. And I can't remember exactly what she specialized in, but there was like something she specialized in as well. Like, so you can be really narrow, or you can be really wide, and you can do that, but the techniques apply the same. Put yourself into a position of an expert, look at where those people hang out, be there, and you'll get business from it, because I'll guarantee you'll stand out because you're an accountant going in to talk about how you can help people in that space.
Yeah, and I think the thing, anyone that's considering this right now, maybe you're sat there and you're like, hey, I'm gonna reach out to people, I'm going to do a guest blog, might do a couple of talks. The thing you need to remember right now is that overarching long-term strategy. You'll have other stuff that sits under that.
Yes.
But that's part of a longer visibility. Realistic, I'm going to be direct with you right now. If you're doing this, you're probably not going to see a return for 6 to 12 months in reality. But what will happen is, say we look January to December, someone sees one of your guest blogs in January. They then get a connection request from you on LinkedIn. Maybe they see you on Instagram. They then go to an event and they see you talk with a room packed full of people. And then they see maybe a Facebook advert that says 3 ways to, whatever the pain is, whatever the problems are, resolve these problems or do these things. They download that guide because they know, oh, that's you. They then get a couple of emails and then they go, yeah, like I've seen this person. When we go back to the start of the conversation, say by the time they've reached that point, it's August, right? But the amount of relationship they've built with you from you doing all these things means that in August, they're probably further down the funnel and they're more likely to sign up and be good clients and be open to listening to what you've got to say, because all that other stuff you've done is actually build that relationship with them.
Yeah, they know you. When they phone you, they already know you. You don't know them, but they know you. They know what you're about, what you're looking for, what you're passionate about. And something you said there that I want to pick up on, I think is really interesting, is understanding the pains of those industries and that business, right? So if you're putting content out, be aware of your market and what they're struggling with. And that's how you become an expert. If you want to attract local clients, well, talk about local issues. Local clients don't necessarily care about, it's a hard thing to say, but generally on a local level, a local business doesn't really care who's in power on a national level, right?
Yeah.
They don't care about what's happening, like what's happening with HS2. Like someone in Brighton does not care about what's happening in HS2 in Birmingham, right? Like they want to know what's happening on a local level. Like I found out this week, fascinating fact. Like, and I came this way through the standard amount of bigotry and hate that these things create. So it's very positive, but it was Pride weekend as we record this. Previous weekend, Pride in Brighton, right? Fantastic event, inclusive, lovely, kind of everything that comes with it. Clearly, all the local newspapers were full of the standard rubbish you get with this. But one of the interesting things I found out reading through the posts and the comments as I do, because I'm sad like that, is it brings into the local economy 25 million over one weekend.
Wow.
And the cleanup costs are all covered by the organisers. So there's actually a net positive. And even if they didn't, and say the cleanup costs were £1 million and they wouldn't be anything close to that, that's still £24 million worth of benefit to the local economy from 2 days, right? Now, actually, if you're a local business person, that's really interesting. And that's going to impact you and your thought process. And you're going to be like, actually, do I do something that could benefit that community? Because actually, there's something I can do here. It's a big event. It brings money in. Could I sponsor it, right, on a local level? Could I do something? Could I be involved on a local level? Because clearly it is a thing that is worth, both from an ethical and moral reason, the right reason, but also from a growing your business and your brand perspective. So you can link the two things together. That same business person really doesn't care if there's a potential that HS2 might not go from Euston anymore. Like,
unless your business is based in Euston.
Exactly, but then it becomes a local issue, right?
Exactly.
So then locally, if you're an accountant that wants to attract a local, so it's and that leads with the authenticity. It goes right back to that beginning point. Be authentic about what you talk about, because that's what attracts people to you, and know the market you want to attract, so you know what to talk about within that. So you're authentic, appealing to the right market. And then people will come to you because they see, this is an expert in this market that's relevant to me, that I keep seeing everywhere. Now's probably the time. And by the way, my accountant has now annoyed me, or my bill's gone up and I don't think I'm getting any value from that. And that's the other piece on this, right? Like, don't ever confuse price and value. No one leaves because of a price. People leave because of the value that they're getting or not getting. The two things are so intrinsically linked but so brilliantly confused.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really funny. It's almost like we've scripted this because my mum obviously had a shop in Brighton in Bond Street, which is just off Churchill Street, which is where Pride goes. And every weekend when Pride was in town, my mum would love it and she'd get more people in because the amount of revenue that one weekend would make for her shop. They'd diarise it on the calendar, which is amazing. But what was great for her is she had these massive shop windows. She was really, really great at putting the right things in there to capture the right audience. Yes. Her shop was always filled. So other people in that her street were coming to her and going, look, Linda, how do I get people into my shop? Because I want to replicate your shop window. And she'd help them. So if you're an accountant and you're in Brighton right now, what you could do is you could get up a map. Where does the parade go? Where are those businesses that are going to be hit the most? And I would personally, because we get so many emails, actually write a letter out and go, hey, we know Pride is a massive weekend for you. You're going to get a lot of money. Here's how you can use that money to either impact your cash flow, or here's the tax implications of this boost that you're going to get.
Love it.
With a QR code, right? With a QR code, taking your point earlier, with a limited 30-minute consultation. If you want to quickly chat about this, give me a call. But there's only 5 spaces a week. All of a sudden, someone's got this letter and they go, well, my account isn't giving me this information. Yeah, what does actually happen if I take loads of revenue? Or actually, like you could do like Stu Hurst is renowned for implementing systems. Imagine someone sends you an email and they go, or a letter and they go, we know that most people's card charge provider is this. Did you know that if you sign up to this charge here, you're going to get, I don't know, like Stripe, for example, or like iZettle, you get an introductory bonus period for 6 weeks where you don't pay any fees. So then Pride rolls around, they've got a new card terminal that they take all of that on with no fees. They're going to get even more money. Like simple stuff like that obviously that's probably a terrible example because you're doing a whole POS system change, but the cash flow or the tax implications, or how can you manage that money that you're about to get?
Yeah, it's so powerful. And again, that's a local accountant focusing on local issues that are relevant to local people. Boom. I'm 100% in. And like when I buy from people, invariably it's because I connect to them or what they're like. Broadband's great. Like I've got 100 different broadband suppliers that service my street. Like I deliberately paid more on my Sky broadband out of contract to wait for the local service provider, a company called Lightning Fiber, because they're local. It's a full fiber. The price is good, but they're local. They share my beliefs and they share kind of like the kind of things I invest in as well. They sponsor a lot of those. So I was waiting for that. I paid a little bit more money, but it's a local company that have marketed to me on local issues. And I was like, I connect with that. So not only am I supporting a local business, but actually I've got better internet. I know that if something goes wrong, like the thing that they said to me was they messaged me and said, look, if something goes wrong, we are literally 5 minutes away from your house. I'm like, okay, as opposed to BT, who are who knows where BT are based, right? Like it's that local thing that connects. And in a world where we've become so much more decentralized and so much more kind of reliant on the Amazons of this world, I want my service providers to really be someone that I can connect with on understand my problem and understand my challenges, right? Like that's what I want, because then if something does go wrong, it's so much easier to have that conversation with them and for them to understand the impact and everything else. So yeah, look, I think that's a brilliant idea. I think, it's stuff like that will drive business through, and really the net cost of that is very low. The letters thing is genius. Carl Reader, again, to reference him a second time, I had a conversation with him a couple of years back, and I was like, what's the thing that you've done that got you the best return? He said, well, when I had we were marketing to get franchise businesses on board, like I did martial arts, so I had a couple of martial arts franchises. So what I did was I wrote letters to all the franchises in the UK in martial arts and said, hey, look, we niche in this. I'm a martial artist, totally understand your challenges. These are the businesses. Here's a couple of testimonials. If you want to have a chat, let's pick up the phone and have a chat. I'm weird. I get excited when I get post because I don't get much post anymore. When I get an email, I'm like, delete. It's probably like someone offering me something, I don't need, or some spam, or I was going to give an example. They didn't need to give that example. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? like it's like trying to make something bigger or your belly smaller, right? Those are always the things I get through, right? So like it's that thing where you're like I don't get excited by an email, but if I get a letter that's personally addressed to me, I'm like, oh, I even get excited when I get an HMRC letter these days. I get so few letters. But will it be a tax refund? No, I owe them money again. Damn.
Yeah. I've got a student loan company always chasing me. I think it's a thing. Oh, we both go at the same time. I think the thing with a letter, like what's really powerful about a letter now is pretty much everything has transitioned over to email. That when someone gets a letter, a lot of the time it garners more attention because we usually think if I get a letter, it's usually a bill, it's usually a tax refund, it's usually a parking ticket or a speeding fine. So letters almost have this like at the moment right now, this might change, but right now letters have a really strong attention authority that people go, okay, I'm gonna look at this. One thing I would say though is if you are sending letters, try and use like a reusable paper brand, something that has previously been recycled or is recyclable. That's my one caveat there. But like if you can send a world-class letter with, everyone loves QR codes these days, it says scan this, go here, you'll stand out.
I can't tell you how much before COVID I was banging on about QR codes and how they are the future, and everyone's like, QR codes are literally dying, Phil. I said, no, they will have their day in the sunset. And then they became a thing during COVID, and now they're everywhere. And I smugly sit there every time someone sends me a QR code going, told you they have their day. Look, like it goes down to the same thing. And it goes back again to that first point. Stand out for being authentic, stand out for being an expert, stand out for being someone that's approachable, stand out for being someone that's connected. One of the other things that I've authentically always done is if I can't help someone, I will kind of say, actually, Tom does this. He does it better than me. Speak to Tom. Or no, Sam at like Swoop does this. He's great. Speak to Sam. Like I've tried to be that connector as well. So if I can't help someone, I'll point them to someone that I trust to give them a good service. And by the way, if I ever get bad feedback about that person, I'll never refer them again. And people know that, right? So you treat those referrals a little bit more special because they're like almost wrapped in bubble wrap and like gold-plated referrals. So they're the best type. Because I, as an expert, is saying, hey, I know this guy who's an expert, or this company who's an expert. And I trust that they will treat you well. And then they know that implicit trust there. So have a good network as well. So if someone comes to you with problems, you say, well, I can help you with this, but that's where my knowledge stops. But actually what you need is a good solicitor. And I know this guy who specializes in divorces or specializes in company law or R&D tax credits or whatever that specialization is. Because, like that way, again, you keep it within that network and, you're just feeding each other all the time then. And, you're getting more and more and more and more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. Some powerful points. So, closing out, what's the one piece of advice you're going to give? So, let's give some frame to this. I'm an accountant or a bookkeeper owner. My main strategy for getting business in is through referrals. I'm looking at diversifying that and getting more just conversations going. What's the biggest tip you have for that person?
Get out there. This is not going to happen sat behind your desk in an office, behind a laptop, next to a computer with a phone with a receptionist that doesn't put any calls through to you, right? Like it's not going to happen. So get out there. Now you can get out there personally, you can get out there digitally, you can get out there in different ways, but get out there because I can assure you your competitors are not. Like they're not. Like I go to networking events all the time. Like, I can't remember. I can't tell you the last time someone asked me who my accountant was.
Mm.
Can't tell you. The answer is I don't have one. But that's not the point, right? Like, no one's ever asked me who my accountant is, right? I used to host networking events when I worked in the bank for small businesses. And out of the 20 accountants or 10 accountants I'd invite, I'd only ever get 2 that would say yes. And it was always the same 2. So there are hundreds of places you can get out there. Get out there. It's far more interesting than sitting behind your desk and waiting for referrals to come in, because whilst they will come in, you can't rely on it. So look, put yourself out there, position yourself as an authentic expert that understands a specific challenge or can help in a specific area, and people will gravitate to you. They will. Like, if you stand there and tell people you're good at this and you do it and people can see that, they will gravitate to you. And the B part of that is, when you do it, be authentic, right? And be human. Like, there was a great quote. I use it on a LinkedIn training course that I'm funny enough, I'm just rewriting at the moment. If you just indulge me for a second while I just quickly flick through the slide decks. There's a great quote that came out of Heather Townsend's Accountants Growth Club. And it's on that subject of human versus professional. It's being human versus professional means to ditch the need to be the ultimate professional, as our members, and her members are accountants, are finding right now. Trying to be uber professional with your content on LinkedIn, with your content for LinkedIn, just doesn't work. When you turn up as a human first, i.e. yourself, LinkedIn gets to be a more fun place to hang around, and people relate to you more. So
Nice.
Get out there, be authentic, and you'll instantly, you will be 2 levels up anyone else that's in your area and doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, powerful stuff. So people listen to you and they go, "Oh, that feels all right." What's the best thing for them to do to get in contact with you?
Just connect with me on LinkedIn. So I am just Phil Hobden on LinkedIn. There's, it's simple as that, right? Like, you could follow me on X or whatever it's called this week, but I'll be honest, I've mostly stopped posting on that these days. There's not much really to do. So look, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have questions around tech, any tech, by the way, it doesn't have to be what I do. If you're trying to solve a tech problem and you need some independent conversation, I will always have a conversation, because for every question you ask me, I've probably got 5 questions about how you use tech that will then help me down the line as well, right? Like, not necessarily to sell to you, but just to get your thoughts. And I've been doing that a lot recently, talking to accountants and getting their kind of understanding on how they use technology, what they're looking for, and how they approach a problem. So we can say, well, actually, how can we take those learnings? And so it's a wonderful kind of 2-way street. So always happy to have conversations, always happy to connect, and always happy to help point you in the direction of some experts like good old Tom here, who can help supercharge your business as well.
Amazing. I did pay him to say that, or at least very much.
You didn't.
Yeah, cool.
In full disclosure, you did buy me a coffee about 3 weeks ago, but that had no bearing on this whatsoever.
yeah, obviously. Yeah, cool. I'll put your LinkedIn below. Phil, great to have you. Onwards and upwards.
Thanks very much.